Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a good number of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, and I would definitely say that this brewery is one of the more established and older craft breweries here in the country. They're known mainly for the traditional styles of beer, English and German for the most part, but you will find a few Czech, Belgian, Irish and Scottish things in there as well. So if that's your cup of tea, then this is a brewery that you definitely need to check out. But for this one, we have a style that I've not had from them before, so I'm very curious to see what this one has in store for us, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So yeah, for this one then, we will head to Örebro, which is out to the west of Stockholm, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Närke Kulturbryggeri. So this particular beer is called the Böhmisk Pilsner. It comes in at 4.2% ABV, and as the name suggests, this one is a Bohemian style Pilsner beer. You can see the Czech words down here as well, Svetli Letsak. So Svetli tells you that it's going to be a sort of light blonde coloured beer, and Letsak refers to a Czech lager beer that is of a certain alcohol percentage. I've never been able to find out exactly what when these terms come into play right enough, but yeah, Letsak tells you that it will be of a certain alcohol percentage. But yeah, this one comes in at 4.2% ABV, and that makes me wonder if it's intended as a little bit of a tribute to Pilsner Urquell or Plzeňský Prazdroj, to give it its Czech name, which was the very first Pilsner beer. But yeah, this should make for a really interesting review. It was released as part of the Lokal Småskalig assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for April of 2021. The exact release date was the 6th of April because it was delayed a little bit due to Easter. But yeah, this should be an interesting one, and like I said earlier, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one. I'm certainly very curious, and if memory serves me correctly, this will in fact be the first Czech style beer that I'm trying from these guys too. So yeah, let's go for it then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Närke Kulturbryggeri before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the fairly near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Närke Kulturbryggeri then, on to my brewery notes. So, Närke Kulturbryggeri, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Örebro, and they were founded back in 2003. So, the company was founded by Håge Viktorsson and Berit Karlsson. So, Håge Viktorsson had a career as a photographer before becoming a home brewer. He was also an artist as well, from what I understand, whereas Berit is the CEO of the company and also the chair of the Swedish Independent Brewers Association, so the Sverige Oberoende Mikrobryggerier-myndighet, from if I've translated that correctly. But yeah, two very prominent figures in the beer world here in Sweden, of course. But for a long time, this brewery were only producing keg beers for pubs and things like this. But in more recent times, they started bottling their beer, and this helped the company grow substantially. And this came after they bought the former brewke and bottling machine of Nynäshamns Ångbryggeri, who are probably the oldest craft brewery in Sweden, in fact. But the brewery currently produce around 100,000 litres of beer per year, and they're particularly famous for the Kagen Stormaxport, which was rated as the world's best beer for a long time on Rate Beer. And you saw me review a version of that quite recently, in fact, and you will see me review it again for my first review in Swedish quite soon, so you can look forward to that when that car crash comes. But yeah, this beer was rated for a very long time as the world's best beer on Rate Beer, and it was first produced back in 2004 simply as Stormaxport, but later when they aged it in bourbon barrels, it became known as Kagen Stormaxport. So yeah, the sort of kegged Stormax porter, if you like, but or strong power porter, that would, or big power porter. I guess that would translate into English as being. But sadly, Håge Vigdisson died in September of 2020, having had a long battle with cancer, but the brewery thankfully will carry on. The brewers Emil Arvidsson and Jürgen Hjerling are co-owners, along with Berit, and they run the production side of the brewery, while Berit takes care of the kind of business side of things, from what I understand. But as of April 2021, these guys have produced around 145 different kinds of beer, and you'll find various different things from these guys. I've had different IPAs, I've had English IPAs as well, I've had English bitters, various different German things as well. So yeah, you can get lots and lots of different traditional styles of beer from this brewery. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Närke Kulturbryggeri for the moment, other than the fact that the brewery is named after the Närke historic area, which, as I say, is out to the west of Stockholm. It's kind of similar to Småland, if you like. It's like a historic province, but not currently like a legal administrative district in modern Sweden, if that makes sense. Do correct me on that in the comment section below if I do have that wrong. Let me know exactly what Närke is if I've explained that or misled you at all. But yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. If you want to learn more, check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Instagram and Facebook to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, as you can see, and as you probably saw earlier, the artwork on this one is quite similar to what you'll find from most of the Närke Kulturbryggeri beers. They've got this sort of nice classic sort of contrasty thing. This does look a little bit more green actually compared to the ones we've had before. I think the other labels that we've had have been a little bit darker, so I think they've changed the shade of that, in honesty. But yeah, there you can see on the top, you can see "Nej and inget bläsk." That basically means it's not shit. Basically, it's not piss in a sense. But yeah, you can see it's it's just really nice there. You can see "Huev klar från allra första början," so basically clear from the beginning, if you want to translate that, I think. But yeah, this is 330 milliliter bottle, this one. I think I paid about 30 Swedish kroners for this, something like that, 25 or 30 Swedish kroners. Let's go with 30. So yeah, about €3 for the bottle. That is roughly about £2.50 sterling, just a little bit more than that probably, and then maybe about $3.50 or something like that American, just so you've got a little bit of a price range. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. So yeah, let's go for it. Ooh, very nice. I have been enjoying a lot of lagers on the channel recently, and it's been nice to see the lagers get a little bit more attention over the last sort of 18 months or so. There's lots of breweries having a go at these lager beers now, which is just great to see, because they were often forgotten in favour of the IPAs and stuff like this. But yeah, I'm glad to see that they are getting a little bit of attention these days, and I hope that more breweries start to have a go at the Czech ones as well, because of course the big focus just now is on the German side of things. So for me, let me just have a look at the head on this beer first before it disappears, because it will. You can see that this beer has poured with about a 2/3 finger of a frothy, I would say cream coloured head there. It is quite nice actually. You can see the colour of this beer as well. It's actually quite amber. For a sort of Pilsner style beer, this is definitely one of the more ambery leaning ones that I've come across. It's got a nice kind of rich goldeny amber colour to it, but one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. And overall it does look pretty nice. You can see this beer has a degree of natural haze to it, which I can really appreciate. But yeah, I think it does look pretty nice. But yeah, that's the appearance of the beer. So just as I was saying earlier, the main difference between the German and the Czech lager beers for me is that the Czech ones tend to be a little bit more yeasty, and so they taste a bit more kind of bready, whereas the German ones are a bit kind of more crisp and clean. But your definition of a lager beer is a cold temperature fermentation or bottom fermenting yeast between 8 to about 12 degrees, I think, Celsius, whereas an ale is going to ferment around 14, 15, 16 sort of degrees Celsius. So that's your main difference between a lager beer and an ale. But there's lots of different types of lagers, of course. In Germany you've got the Helles, whereas in the Czech Republic you've got basically analogues of those, if that makes sense. Is that the right way that I'm saying? Yeah, analogues, whatever. But yeah, so in Germany there's the Helles, the blonde lager. Czech Republic it would be the Svetli. You've got the Märzen, which would be the Letzack, the more kind of ambery coloured one, and I guess this one is somewhere in between, which might also be a reason why they've used Svetli and Letzack here. But kind of related to that, you also have the Vienna lager, which tends to be a little bit more sort of oily than the Märzen. The Märzen tends to be a little bit more biscuity. Then you've got the Dunkel in Germany, which is the mahogany coloured one, the Czerny in the Czech Republic. You've got the Schwarzbier, the black lager in Germany. Then you have the Tmavi in the Czech Republic, and you also have things like the Bock beers, the Doppelbock and things like that, which are also lager beers originating from Einbeck in Germany, of course. But yeah, those are all the different types of lager beers that I know of. There's probably a few more out there as well though, but yeah, you tend to get similar derivatives of these kind of beers in the Czech Republic, of course. But the first Pilsner was Plzeňský Prazdroj, or Pilsner Urquell as it's known, brewed in the city of Pilsen, which was known as Pilsner under the Germans. Because remember, when this beer would have been developed in the 1860s or whenever it was, that city would have been part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and it was populated by a mix of ethnic Czechs and ethnic Germans, or Czech speakers and German speakers. So yeah, that's a kind of brief history of the lager beers in general, and a little bit about the specific Pilsner style. But the guy who invented this style was actually Bavarian, I think, but he wasn't a very nice guy, and I think he only lasted about 2 years in Pilsen before he was thrown out, and then he was replaced with a Czech brewer, from what I understand. So yeah, that's it. If you want to learn about that, of course, go and have a look at the history of Pilsner Urquell, or you can watch my video on that. But yeah, as we saw, this beer certainly has a very nice appearance, kind of what you would expect from a Pilsner beer, but just a little bit more kind of amber than some of the other ones you're going to come across. But yeah, let's take a closer look at the aroma then, and just see how we get on with this one. It does smell pretty nice, actually. Yeah, the thing that you look for in these beers, or at least I look for, would be authenticity, and this one certainly gives you that. Straight away with the beer, you can smell a nice, smooth, bready base to it, and that is kind of in keeping with the difference between the Czech Pilsen and the German Pilsner. Because the German lagers tend to be a bit kind of cleaner and crisper in a sense, whereas the Czech ones tend to be a little bit smoother, more yeasty, and a little bit bready. So yeah, that's the thing with the Czech beers. They're very distinctive in that sense. But yeah, you can smell that lovely kind of smooth white bready note in this one. It's got a little bit of a bread crusty element kind of sitting in there too, which is great. One or two little grainy notes, but there is a wee bit of a kind of brown sugary caramelly element coming out of this one. So I do get a wee touch of caramel in this. That might well go some way towards explaining the colour of the beer. Remember, the colour depends on the type of malts that you use and the length of your wort boil. I'm not sure how long the wort boil is for a Pilsner, actually. I guess it's maybe, you know, around about 70 minutes or something like that. But yeah, that would maybe explain the colour. I think there might be a little touch of caramel in this one, right enough. But yeah, you definitely get that lovely kind of biscuity, McVitie's digestive sort of biscuity thing out of this one as well. So a bit of sweet caramel, a little touch of honey maybe, and then some nice biscuity McVitie's digestive sort of things. But it really smells very authentic, this one, and it gives you that little bit of breadiness that you would expect from the Czech side of things. And that's kind of important if you're going to call the beer Böhmisk Pilsner, Bohemian Pilsner. So yeah, it's kind of got everything you would want on the malt base. And you do get a wee bit of the kind of crispness of the Pilsner Pilsen malt in this one as well. So yeah, on the malty side of things, it has everything that you would want. So thumbs up to Närke Kulturbryggeri for that. On the hoppy side of things, again, it's what you would expect. Normally with these beers, they would use Czech Sats hops, as the German speakers would call them, or Žatec, as the Czechs would. And I find that compared to the other noble hops, these are a little bit kind of spicy in a sense, and you get a wee touch of that out of this beer for sure. So you can smell a little bit of earthiness in there, but you've got a nice, you've got quite a bright and slightly spicy floral aromaticity out of the beer, then a bit of smoother grassy note at the kind of front of the nose, which is great. But on the fruity side of things, again, it's kind of what you would expect. It's got a lovely sort of mix of different things in there. There's a wee touch of a kind of peary, appley sort of ester coming out of it. There's one or two there's a wee touch of a kind of gooseberry-ish note in there as well, almost. I do get a little bit of a kind of gooseberry limey sort of thing, but that's quite minimal. The beer does have a little bit of oiliness in the fruits actually, which I certainly like. But yeah, the fruity side of this beer, I think goes together really well. there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on in there. But yeah, a bit of an appley note, a little bit of a peary note, one or two little gooseberry kind of things in there as well, and a wee bit of a kind of grassy, citrusy ester coming out of the beer also. So yeah, in terms of a Bohemian Pilsner, this beer gives you everything that you would want. I think this one's got a little touch more brown sugar in it compared to some of the ones that I've tried from down there. But yeah, definitely comes across as very authentic, which in my opinion is exactly what you should want. But yeah, let's have a taste of this beer and see how we get on then. This one is the Böhmisk Pilsner, Bohemian Pilsner, coming in at 4.2% ABV from Närke Kulturbryggeri in Örebro, just out to the west of Stockholm here in Sweden. Let's go for it. Slange, skål, cheers. Yeah, that is pretty damn solid, I have to say. Well done to Närke Kulturbryggeri once again. But I'm going to complain right away. Should not be sold in 330s, half litres. These beers should be sold in half litres. I think, personally, I think it's a bit of a waste to, if you're going to brew lager beers like this, they're so drinkable. And I think, I mean, I only buy one of each kind of beer, and if you're doing small, in the fairness, I can understand if they're doing it as a sort of small release, so that's an excuse in a sense, and a reasonable one. But if you're going to brew Pilsner beers and lager beers like this, these should be half litres. They release IPAs in half litre bottles, and I've seen them do this. If you're going to release lager beers, I think these have to be half litres. But yeah, we'll put that aside just now. That's just one of my kind of pet hates. If you do a lager beer, it should be a 440 can or a half litre bottle. Just my opinion in that sense. But yeah, selling them in 330s is a bit annoying, I have to say. And I've complained about this in other lager beer reviews as well. It's not just Närke Kulturbryggeri that do this. And the reason that I complain about it is because it's a good beer. It's a very solid example of the style. And, you know, I feel that these lager beers are just really underappreciated, and it just, in a sense, it annoys me, because when I have them, I'm like, I want more. I want a half litre of this, because the half litre, I think the 330 isn't enough, whereas if you drink a half litre of this, you just feel satisfied with it, and it also gives me an excuse to use my tankard as well, which I like doing for lager beers rather than the tulip glass. Not that there's anything wrong with using the tulip glass, it does the job. But still, half litre lager beer, that's what we need. But yeah, as I say, this is a very authentic lager beer, this one. It's definitely got a nice kind of oiliness to it as well, but I think, in fairness, you're always going to get this from Swedish and Nordic brewed examples of this style, just because of the sort of cleanliness of the water that you get here. I've always found that Nordic beers feel very, very clean. But yeah, this beer does have everything that you want, or that you would want, of a Bohemian Pilsner. It does just give you a little bit of the kind of signature thing from Närke Kulturbryggeri as well, which I like. So yeah, let's break down the flavour of this beer then. So, backbone of the beer, across the middle of your tongue, you can feel that nice bready quality just going right across the middle of your palate there. It's actually quite grainy on the base of the palate there, so you perhaps do get a little bit of an almost kind of slight wholemealy brown bready kind of thing on top of that, but then it's all about the white bread, and then it's all about the white bread, and it's all about the white bread on top of that, and the kind of bread crusty element. So I really like that. In the very centre of your palate, you do have a sweet kind of caramel in there, and as you move out from the centre of that, it does develop a little bit of a kind of honey type flavour, and as you push towards the extremities of that middle third of your palate, it's got a few kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of things. So yeah, that certainly works with this beer too. So yeah. Yeah, the flavour profile of this beer is really nice in that regard. I think it works really well. What you're going to notice is that we've described the kind of layers of the beer, the sort of grainy note underneath, the kind of more smooth bready kind of note, and a little bit of the kind of bread crusty element there too. The kind of caramelly notes, the brown sugary notes on top of that, yeah, go together really well. What you will notice is that on the front kind of corners of the palate, you get a little bit of a woodiness underneath as well. Dog's going crazy because somebody's coming home. So yeah, you do get a little bit of woodiness in this one, but on the back half of that middle third of your palate, you definitely get a little bit of that kind of you definitely get a little bit of that sort of Pilsner malty crispness there, which I really like. But yeah, on the back third of your palate, again, you get a real graininess. On that back third, you can get a bit of that more kind of grainy bread crusty element coming out of the beer. And on top of that back third of your palate, you can feel the sort of yeasty esters just sitting on top of that. So at the back of the palate, the flavour feels a little bit taller like this, and you can feel it just condensing down as you move forward. But as you reach the border with that middle third of your palate, it goes down quite a bit, and then you've got quite a condensed flavour in the middle third of your palate there as well. But yeah, it's nice in that sense. But the thing that really gives you the signature Närke Kulturbryggeri element to it is the bit of graininess that the beer has. The Närke Kulturbryggeri beers have a sort of distinctive, slightly grainy, malty character, which I can certainly appreciate. And it's maybe something to do with their house yeasts in a sense, although it might be just one of the types of grains that they're using. They might be using like a local grain in their beers a little bit as well, which is always a nice touch. I love that when you can taste a beer and you can just think, right, this is Williams Brothers, this is Närke. So yeah, definitely interested in that sense. But on the hoppy side of the beer then, nice little touch of earthiness in the back corners of the palate. As you move further forward, it gets a little touch herbal, and then as you move progressively forward towards the front corners of your palate, it's got a nice little bit of a sort of spicy floral aromaticity to it. And as I say, that's the signature of the Czech Žatec Sats hops. So yeah, you do get that nice signature thing out of this. So yeah. Yeah, there is a wee bit of smoothness to the green component in this beer as well, so it makes me wonder, could there be a little bit of one of the Slovenian hops in here? For me, the three or four types, whatever you want to say, the different types of noble hops. You've got the German ones, the Hallertaus from Bavaria, the Tettnangers from Baden-Württemberg. Those ones have a nice kind of brightness to them. The Czech ones have a little bit more spiciness, and you really do get a bit of spiciness and bitterness out of this beer the further you go into the aftertaste. So I think, yeah, the Žatec hops are definitely in here, but the beer also has a good little bit of smoothness to it, and that makes me wonder if there's some Slovenian hops in here as well, like some Styrian hops or something like this. And remember, at the time that this style of beer would have been developed, Slovenia as well would have been part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, so I do wonder how common it was to use Slovenian hops in Czech beers as well. So that's another interesting point. But yeah, they would have had to be transported quite far, and of course you've got hop producing regions in Austria as well. So yeah, they're definitely a bit of food for thought with this beer for sure. But yeah, it's got around the front curve of your palate, you definitely get a little bit of a kind of zesty grassiness in there, so there's a wee bit of bite to it, but it does have quite a bit of a spicy green component to it as well, which I really like. So yeah. Yeah, this one is interesting in that sense, but yeah, the green component of the beer goes together very, very well. So yeah, it gives you that little bit of spicy, bitey kind of thing that you would expect of the Czech Sats hops, which I really like. So yeah, another marker, another thumbs up for authenticity with this beer. But let's focus on the front third of your palate. So on that border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again you get a little bit of a sort of grainy build up there, so you can feel that, but then the base of the front third of your palate is a sort of brown bread crusty grainy bread sort of thing. But as I always say, on that front third of your palate, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, in this one you get a little bit, you can feel there's a little bit of a kind of concentrated citrusy element towards the back of the front third of your palate, but as you move further forward, you gradually get more of those kind of sort of peary, you get a little bit of a peary and appley kind of ester to the beer too, which is nice. I don't really get the sort of gooseberry element that was picking up in this one in the aroma, but certainly the sort of peary and appley esters you get out of this beer are quite oily in a sense. So yeah, I can really appreciate how this beer goes about its business, in fact, and it is pretty authentic. Like I say, it's a little bit more oily, and I think there is a wee touch more of a kind of brown sugary element to this one in comparison to some other ones. But yeah, I like it. It does get a thumbs up for me. I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink that again, and it does still annoy me that it's not a half litre. It's only a 330, but what can you do? Yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel of the beer then, to round off the review, you know, it's top end and light bodied, this one. The carbonation is very smooth. It's got a nice little bit of an oily slickness to it, in fact. So yeah, it is one of the slightly more oily and slicker lager beers that I've had. But in terms of hoppy bitterness, I think this one does have a wee bit more to it. This is maybe 25 or 30 IBUs, and you know, Pilsner Urquell I think has about 30 IBUs as well, so it is quite a bitter beer, this one, in a sense. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this is 30 IBU, and again at 4.2%, it's quite similar in alcohol content to the Pilsner Urquell. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is brewed as a sort of tribute beer, if we could call it that. But yeah, definitely has about 25 or 30 IBUs to it, this one. Maltbase, like I say, has a nice kind of smoothness and a slight graininess underneath, some nice sort of oily kind of sweet characteristics to it as well, and a big kind of oily fruity character on the front of the palate too. But overall, it's a very, very nice example of this style of beer, and I think it works very, very well. So big thumbs up to Närke Kulturbryggeri. Once again, another solid example of a traditional style of beer that you don't see all that often. My only complaint, sell it in 500s, make that a regular beer. I think in terms of authenticity, this one is pretty good. If you want another authentic and really well done lager beer, I would recommend the Skånsk Lager from Julia Brewery here in Skåne in the south of the country. That's another very authentic one. But yeah, this is very nicely done, definitely. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Närke Kulturbryggeri. We will return to these guys sometime soon, I'm sure. I think I've got a smoked beer from these guys in the fridge, come to think of it, that I'll need to have at some stage. But thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, and I'll see you guys in the next review. The Böhmisk Pilsner from Närke Kulturbryggeri in Örebro, out to the west of Stockholm here in Sweden. Slange, skål, cheers, and see you on the next one.